I wish you'd look at the nursery. What's wrong with it? I don't know. It's just that the nursery is different than it was. All right, let's have a look. Well, they walked down the hall of their soundproof, happy life house that cost them about $30,000 to build and installed. This house clothed and fed them. It rocked them to sleep at night. The nursery music would play. The house took care of them. As they walked down the hall, the lights would come on in front of them, and the lights would automatically go off behind them with a very quiet click. They stepped into the room of the nursery. It was 40 feet long, 40 feet wide, 30 feet tall, and it was dark and quiet. But as they stepped in, a quiet hum, and the black walls faded into the distance, and a deep African sky developed, and an African veldt appeared on the walls. All of the clarity was there, down to the last pebble and to the last blade of straw. George Hadley felt the perspiration appear on his brow. He said, "Let's get out of the sun. This is a little bit too real, but I don't see anything wrong." "Wait a moment," said Lydia, "you'll see." And now all of a sudden the automorphics began to blow, and the smell of the dry desert began to waft over them as they stood in the middle. They could smell the lion grass and the feeding hole. They could hear the thump of antelope in the distance. There, you see, there are lions over there in the distance. Way over there, they're eating. "What are they eating?" said Lydia. "I don't know. Some animal." George Hadley put his hand up to block the sun to begin to look. "Maybe it's a zebra or a baby giraffe." "Are you sure?" His wife sounded tense. "It's a little bit too late to be sure," he said. "All I can see is a pile of bones. Nothing there but all that's been picked over." "Did you hear that scream?" "No." "When?" "About a minute ago." "No, I didn't hear it." "The lions are now coming." And again, George Hadley was filled with amazement at the mechanical genius who developed this. Every house should have one. Occasionally they frightened you with their little bit of overstimulation, a little bit too much clarity, but it's more than just for the kids. Every once in a while, maybe a parent could jump in there and step away from reality, travel to a foreign land, or pick up a little bit of a different sense. And there it was. The lions were a little bit closer. They were now just 15 feet away, and you could feel their fur and smell the meat on their breath. And the lion stood looking at George and Lydia. Suddenly, Lydia screamed, "Watch out!" And she began to run. She ran to the door, and George instinctively followed. They slammed the door behind them. George was laughing, Lydia was crying, and each one was appalled at the other's reaction. "George, Lydia, my dear, they almost got us." "Walls, Lydia, walls, crystalline walls, that's all they are. They look so real, I admit. Africa in your parlor. It's all dimensional, all super activity film on walls." "But it was so real," said Lydia. She came over and clenched herself to George's chest and began to sob. "I'm afraid. Do you see? Do you feel? It's too real." Now, that story was written 65 years ago. Now, we today open our cars with clicks on buttons. We roll down the windows with pushes on switches. Even in our mid-level sedan, passengers and drivers sit in comfort on either side of the vehicle with their own temperature control. And in factories, little robots buzz around picking up and delivering goods to the people versus the people having to go out and get it themselves. But the housing industry has progressed a little slower. Most of us still open our front door with a key. We still open our windows by hand. Now, there have been some progressions. We had the Nest come out a couple of years ago, which is the first sort of upgrade of a thermostat in over 50 years. It sold out within 3 days. And those little robotic opening devices now are smart. They can actually read your fingerprints to open the door, or you can actually open it near field with your iPhone, or you can punch in a code. And those little robotic devices that you wandered around the floor, like sort of possessed remote control devices, have gotten so that they can actually learn the room. They can scan the room with radar and now figure out exactly where to go so they don't keep bumping into things. And yes, we have got so we can actually cover our windows and our walls with devices to create whatever atmosphere inside or outside that we want. But these still feel a little bit like gimmicks, not like something that we would automatically adopt. And I think that's because homes are different. They're different than our vehicles. We express them differently. We see this in the way that we dream. When we dream about yachts or we dream about cars, we dream about things of the future, things that may not even exist, technology, etc. But we dream about homes. We dream about getting away. We dream about isolation. We dream about putting the world outside and having a safe refuge inside. We also express our values differently with automobiles versus cars. If we want to show our affluence with a car, it will be with a brand, technology that exudes luxury or speed. With homes, it's all about place. How near am I to a community? How near am I to a school? Or about size? American homes have gotten 150% bigger over the last 50 years. But technology is slowly creeping in ways that we may not always realize. Over 61% of American homes are now Wi-Fi enabled, so devices inside can now connect to the internet. It costs 15 cents to Wi-Fi enable a device, so a light switch or a lamp can now, for just pennies, be connected to that network. And regardless if we realize it or not, we are all slowly becoming connected to the cloud. That PC that used to be the corner station of our work is now abandoned. Our music is on iTunes, our movies are on Amazon, our contacts are within our iPhone, and our friend list is in Facebook, and all of those devices are connected to the internet in one way or another. And it changes things. I think the areas where we'll see change is in safety and in security, in our audio and entertainment world, and the way we deal with efficiency and control as we get to try to get a grip on our use of space and resources. So that security camera that now sits idly outside of your door and passively watches the person steal your UPS package, and you can then watch it later in real time for your full enjoyment, can now suddenly get smarter. Now, the camera can actually see the UPS truck. It knows it's a UPS truck. It recognizes the profile. It actually can recognize your delivery driver. Besides that, it has actually already read your Amazon account, saw that you had given an order, looked up when it was going to be delivered, and it actually expects the truck to deliver. After it's dropped off, it'll continue to watch around your neighborhood. And if it sees a face that it doesn't recognize, it'll do a profile scan of it, and it'll walk through your Facebook profile to see whether or not the person that's walking up now is someone that you know, and then it'll send you a message and say, oh, by the way, Jason went and picked up that package because he obviously knows you're sitting in Las Vegas at a conference. Now that we're connected, we can suddenly get smart. We already have rooms that you can set the temperature through your iPhone, or you can set the music, and you can set the lighting. But what if you're inviting friends over, you put it in your calendar, and the room is smart enough to look up the profile of those people that are coming over, look at Spotify and look at Pandora, understand what kind of music they like, and automatically set the room for that person. If you're watching television or if you're looking at events, as you walk through the home, the capability is now for that media to follow you from your small device to your big device to the bathroom mirror. You're never out of contact. A company that was actually a little bit ahead of its time, they started this about 1.5 years ago and didn't make it, had a device which you could actually replace all of the screw-in light bulbs in your ceiling. These devices were Wi-Fi enabled, and they had light and sound in them. So as you went around your house, the sound and the lighting was automatically set to your preference and simply followed you through the house as you went. But we're not just stuck with technology changes. The social designers out there are beginning to realize that at some point we're going to have to deal with urbanization, smaller spaces, more efficient use of resources and time. And so they came up with these designs where you have couches that automatically fold into bunk beds for people who are coming over. You have a floor mat that you can then fold up into various configurations to have as a table, as a chair, or as a desk. And though ultimately fascinating, I'm struggling to find the use of this. It's a full bathroom that is actually shaped in the size of a hallway cabinet, where you have a fold-out sink, a fold-down toilet, and a complete fold-down bathtub. Now, where did we leave George and Lydia? 65 or 63 years ago. We're going to have to leave them in that land, but I leave them in the very capable hands of Ray Bradbury. And if you want to read the rest of the story, I encourage you to go on and search The Veldt from Ray Bradbury, and you can see how their world ends. Our world is just beginning. As we stand here in 2013, we're actually now right at the beginning of the cusp of the automation of our homes, where devices begin to talk to devices. The information that we want to have access is now shared on the cloud, and so things can begin to get smart about who we are, what we like, who we're having over, and what is happening in our environment. And 65 years from now, we can all reconvene and see how close we were. Thank you.